welcome back to another episode of The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, the show where I, the curator, discuss my personal favorite show of all time, personal favorite franchise of all time, Doctor Who. And today, as you probably have managed to guess by simply looking at the thumbnail that I made, we will be talking about classic aliens from the first 26 seasons of the show. As a matter of fact, for personal reasons, for personal preference reasons, I decided to stay mostly within the first 20-ish seasons of the show, maybe even less. And this is actually the first part of a new experiment that I'm doing over on this show, which is me and a special guest. And for the first batch of episodes, for the first episode of that experiment, my guest is actually someone that has been on the show fairly recently, a good friend, a fan of Doctor Who, classic and modern, which is the best kind of fans of Doctor Who. Say hello to K9-ish.
Ish. 50, how are you? It's great to be back.
Yeah, fun fact, I just remembered there is actually a Sixth Doctor Big Finish episode literally called Ish.
Ooh.
Like ... ish.
That can stand for anything.
Yeah, and
I'm
it's
glad
actually...
to know that I'm putting the special back and special guest this week, 50. Here we go.
That was actually the first, well, one of the few episodes where the fact that the Sixth Doctor's companion, Perry, being an American, actually matters to the plot. So, one of the main reasons I enjoy that episode. Now, obviously, we have to talk about something that happened over past week. As a matter of fact, by the time we're recording this, it already happened yesterday. We tragically lost a legend of the screen, especially the small screen, the wonderful Bernard Cribbins. Obviously, started his Doctor Who journey, I should say, in the Peter Cushing movies, rather the second one as playing a supporting character, which was sort of a replacement to the Ian Chesterton character from the first one. But most people probably know him as Wilfred Mott from the iconic GIF, from Series 4 of Doctor Who, where he played Donna Noble's grandfather. And this is just... it hit me right in the gut when I heard that. And I made a special tribute video on my channel where I just talked about my thoughts and feelings on the whole situation. But Snark, I don't think I asked you. How did you take this situation?
To be fair, when I heard they passed away, that he was 93, and congrats to him. That's a heck of a life lived. I thought of you. It's like, ooh, this is the first character that I knew that passed since I've known you and stuff like that. So it's like, I didn't know how 50 was taking it, and I knew I was going to be on the show today, so I was sure we were going to talk about it. And I sure loved some episodes with Donna's granddad, but I had no idea about the Peter Cushing movies that he being in them and stuff like that too, which I think was pretty wild. Yeah, 93 years. Boy, that's a way to live your life.
Yeah, a life well spent, and brought so much love and joy and happiness to a lot of people's hearts in more stuff other than just Doctor Who. And he will be celebrated for many, many years to come.
Oh, yeah.
I also found this wonderful picture right here, and I just wanted to put this up on the screen and have a quick moment of silence. And with the sad, tragic part out of the way, it's time to talk about some happier moments, some more festive moments, starting, of course, with the birthdays of this week. Now, we are counting down from the 26th all the way to the 1st of August, but according to my list here, most of these are really just the 26th, 28th, and 29th. So,
Okay.
and I did look. I did my usual searching of, I found like 10, 20 people and just tried to trim it down respectfully,
Sure.
I would say. And honestly, this week it's mostly predominantly behind the scenes people, or rather just production people. There are a few actors on this list for sure, but mostly production people, starting with on the 26th, we have Spencer Wielding. He was primarily a stuntman, and actually very, very fitting to this episode. He actually did a lot of creature stuff. He played the creature in the Matt Smith episode, The God Complex. He was the Wooden King in The Doctor, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. He played Skaldak, the Ice Warrior in Cold War. He was the Queel Goddess in the spin-off show Class, and he was one of the dregs in the Jodie Whittaker episode Orphan 55. Also on July 26th, you're gonna like this. Nana Visitor.
Sure.
Strictly speaking, she only appeared in 2 episodes of Torchwood, but as you can see in this picture, she's mostly predominantly famous for being Kira Nerys. Remember the name? Kira Nerys on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, the Bajoran leader there, and I believe she was the second in command to Captain Sisko. Am I right?
I believe you're right.
Yeah. So also 26, Eve Miles. Hold on. There we go. Eve Miles. Speaking of Torchwood, she played Greg Cooper in the iconic Doctor Who spin-off. In some regards, the show was kind of about her. It was mostly shown from her perspective, which is actually staying very true to the Doctor Who philosophy of mostly showing the events through the eyes of the companion.
Right.
So, happy birthday to her. Hold on. Next on my list, we also have Bob Baker, also known as Robert Baker, who was a writer and executive associate producer, I should say, on a lot of episodes of Doctor Who and a lot of the episodes of the K9 series. And he's also the creator of K9, which again, very fitting with your
There
name.
you go.
And fun fact for the audience, we did not plan this out. This happened completely by accident. And hold on. Did I miss someone? Oh, nope. I just had him under a different name. So also here we have Roy. That's the previous picture I just showed. Roy Scannell. I believe that's the name. Scammell. Sorry, my bad. He was predominantly a stuntman and a star coordinator on a lot of the early episodes from John Pertwee's first season, which again fits well with the background. Didn't plan this out, just happened by serendipity, which is another reference to the John Pertwee episode. Yeah, he was mostly a stuntman on The Ambassadors of Death and Inferno. And the second big major tragedy on this week, on July 29th, would have been the birthday of one Mr. David Warner. Unfortunately, he passed away on July 24th, which from our perspective is Sunday of this week. Yeah, he played, well, obviously he had a role in the aforementioned Cold War, which features a character we will be talking about today, but for most people who aren't in the know, he actually played the Doctor in the Unbound series.
Oh, really? Oh, I think you were talking about this. You're right.
Yeah, he played an alternate timeline version of the Third Doctor, and easily the best one, at least in my opinion. So good that he actually became basically an unofficial doctor in an alternate universe known as the Unbound Universe, and has actually made numerous appearances alongside Bernice Summerfield and her myriad of adventures. And again, he would have been 81 had he made it a few days later into his birthday. So very sad and tragic. There always a tragedy when an actor of this caliber passes. But
Part of my childhood, he was a bad guy in a couple of the movies I absolutely loved as a kid. He was a bad guy in Tron, and he was also the bad guy in The Time Bandits. Still one of my all-time favorite movies.
He an acting legend, just, and it's such a sad tragedy to just 5 more days. Like, what is with? Come on, God, what's wrong with you? Yeah,
Goodness.
to the wonderful late great David Warner and the rest of the wonderful people I just mentioned today. Thank you all. We quite literally could not do this without you. Now let's talk about some aliens. So basically, how this idea came about is as I usually tend to do, I listen to a Big Finish Doctor Who episode at work, which I do every day. And that episode actually brought back, as the Big Finish team tend to do, they brought back a familiar face, a alien race that has been featured in the show in one episode, but hasn't necessarily been explored well enough. But that episode in particular, or rather that species, is a popular fan favorite amongst the fans. So they just brought it back and added a lot of lore and detail and mythology to that race, a race that I don't particularly am a fan of, at least not from that episode. And I listened to that episode and I'm like, wow, this is really good. I actually care about these guys right now, which I didn't before, which actually got me thinking about this could be an interesting topic to talk about on the show. The various different alien races on the show that actually have these big major mythology and lore added to them. So I made a couple of title cards to show off during the show, and I also, taking a page out of my own book from a few episodes ago, I also prepared some notes.
Oh boy!
Took me some time to write all of these, but I
Yikes.
actually compiled some interesting. You can't really see. Hold
Very
on.
good. I can see how thick it is. I can see how thick that book is.
Yeah, I made a couple of notes on each one of these,
Attaboy.
and I am going to be talking about some. I wonder how many of these points I'll actually have time to talk about during this episode. But I also have the wonderful, lovely Mr. Snark here, who actually suggested that I send him a list of episodes to watch, and he very kindly and graciously sat down and watched it. Watched them all.
My pleasure.
Yeah, always a pleasure to watch Classic Who.
Yeah, it was super fun.
The first race we will be discussing today is none other than the Time Lords.
Okay.
You can see here in this title card that I prepared. Here we can see a picture of a Time Lord, which is presumably Rassilon or another major important Time Lord from Time Lord mythology. I never actually explicitly said who this person is, but yeah, he's standing there on the mountains of Gallifrey with the citadel standing right behind him. So right here, as you can see on the title card, species Time Lords, home planet Gallifrey, biological type humanoids, notable members the Doctor, the Master, Rassilon, Omega, and the Rani, played by very great Kate O'Mara. So yeah, as I try to sort out these notes right here, what do you think about the time? Why do you like the Time Lord?
Oh, I thought the Time Lords were a bunch of stuffed shirts. Like this is very much a government. They're all government style people. Backstabbing. I didn't. Well, at least some of them were. I enjoyed how they worked out in classes. I enjoyed how they have their suits really looked a lot like stuff you'd find out of Buck Rogers or Flash Gordon. Of course, before the '77 series for Buck Rogers or the 1980 Flash Gordon movie. That's what kind of drew my eyes. That kind of sci-fi. I really like the headdresses around it. I like the episodes where is it where the Doctor becomes president and having the Cardinals and stuff like that. Really enjoyed the Cardinal. I enjoy all the actors that were playing them, but yes, as a species, yeah, I thought considering how benevolent the Doctor is and willing to help he is and stuff like that, I don't see how he's a Time Lord when you compare him to most of these others. You haven't seen too many other Time Lords like the Doctor. Let's just say that. So some of them look very rigid in their classes, so to speak, for like they're on Gallifrey, anyways.
Well, here's the thing you have to remember, though.
Mm-hmm.
Doctor kind of not really a Time Lord, which explains a lot of why he's so different from all of them.
Yes.
I should also. But yeah, so the Time Lords are also known by many other names, namely the Sun Builders, the Watchmakers, the Superiors, the Shadow People, the House Dwellers, the Lords of Jewel, and the race of temporal supremacy. So the Time Lords basically are a sort of meant as an allegory for British colonialism and the whole superiority complex that's well associated with British at the time. And so a lot of the stuff the Time Lords are known for, like as previously mentioned, some of the times child stuff, kind of derivative of British people just taking something not really theirs and exploiting it to the best of their ability to build their entire empire upon. Which very, very fitting. During the Dark Times, they established their Time Lord Society. Time Lord Society is primarily built on the backs of three predominant members, namely Rassilon, Omega, and the Other. The Other is been many years speculated to be a reincarnation of the Doctor, with the most recent information given to us about the Timeless Children and Tecteun. It is presumed by many today that Tecteun is actually the Other, which really takes me back to that scene from the flashbacks in the Timeless Children, where we see Tecteun after the successful regeneration walking over, and there's two figures standing on either side of him, one of which bears a very striking resemblance to the actor who played Rassilon on Big Finish for several years. So take that for what it is. So during the Dark Times, the Rassilon, still not technically president yet, Rassilon battled the ruling tyrannical rulers of Gallifrey, the Pythians, eventually banishing them to the nearby planet of Karn. And they eventually went on to form the Sisterhood of Karn, which was first seen in The Brain of Morbius and more recently seen during The Night of the Doctor and Peter Capaldi's second season. During which time the Tecteun, which was a scientist and explorer, designed one of the very first few ships that could actually leave leave Gallifrey's system and travel through space. She found the Foundry, which is where she found the nebulous. Hold on. I apologize, but yeah. So This is where she found the mysterious timeless child, and she brought her back to Gallifrey, experimented on her. Once she found out about her regenerative capabilities, and once she actually cracked the code and tested it on herself, and actually managed to regenerate for the first time, he brought this kind of technology to Rassilon and to Omega, and they eventually inserted it into every single other Gallifreyan, or rather Shabogan, I should say. The Shabogans are the original native people to Gallifrey. After the banished Pythians, they became the predominant species there. Now, obviously, not every Shabogan can become a Time Lord. Several of them still live in the outskirts of Gallifrey, outside the main citadel. But the main Gallifreyans who actually live in the big major cities can actually become Time Lords. Obviously, the Rassilon decided to limit the number of regenerations for each Time Lord to only 13. During which, around the same time, using their immensely long lives and powerful scientific advances, Omega, a stellar engineer from the old days of Gallifrey, began to experiment with black hole technology, eventually creating the Eye of Harmony, which gave the Time Lords an endless source of energy that also allowed them to travel through time and space, eventually becoming Lords of Time. During that time, the universe was mainly a bit of a mess in terms of time, where so many things that shouldn't happen did happen, and basically a lot of moments in time in history happened all at once. Point of reference: the wedding of River Song, where at the beginning of the episode you see trains and flying cars happening at the same time, people walking around with dinosaurs. Churchill was the Holy Roman Emperor, and he had a Silurian doctor. Yeah, a lot of messiness until the Time Lords eventually came along and sort of took matters into their own hands, weaving the entire universe into what they called the Web of Time, making sure that the entire universe was primarily anchored by what they called fixed points in time and space. Everything else other than those fixed points in time and space can be changed and altered if need be, but those specific moments had to stand in order for the entirety of the Web of Time, the entire universe, to not collapse in on itself. I'm gonna remove the mutation there.
Mutation? Oh my god.
Mutation. Yeah. So yeah, they use the Web of Time, and they primarily control time through the Maori in the Temple of Atropos, as recently seen in Jodie Whittaker's most recent season. During the Dark Times, they fought the Rachnos and the vampires and the Revenists. During more recent times, relatively recent times, they also battled against the Vardans and the Sontarans, and most notably the Daleks. And they even had a civil war on Gallifrey itself, which is predominantly what led to Gallifrey being so weak when the Time War itself started. At one point, the Time Lords have basically abolished the concept of natural birth, to the point where by the time the Doctor left Gallifrey, no one had grandparents anymore, according to certain sources. Instead, Rassilon created these devices called Time Lord looms, which sort of they took certain strands of DNA and biological mass and weave them together until the point where they can actually weave an entire person. For the most part, a lot of Time Lords that were looms were loomed. That's a tough sentence to say. Were created, or rather, loomed at infancy and sometimes as children, without the need for natural birth. At that point, they were kept in small family groups known as cousins, primarily of the same gender. So males predominantly with males and females predominantly with males, until eventually, at a certain age, depending on certain attributes that they've shown so far in their incredibly short life after that point, they were taken to either the Time Lord Academy or the military. Young Gallifreyans were taken into the Academy. It's a bit further down. So young Time Lords who were taken into the Academy were sorted into one out of 6 chapters, also known as colleges. The Arcalian chapter, whose colors were predominantly green, the Cerulean chapter, which colors were predominantly blue, the Bromian chapter, which colors predominantly were silver and grayish, the Patrix, which wore colors of heliotrope, the Pridonian chapter, which were predominantly crimson, orange, and the Scandalous chapter, which colors, and this is coming straight from the Doctor Who Wiki, their colors were subdued. I didn't actually say an official actual color, just subdued. And this is actually the shortest wiki entry out of these 6, mainly because apparently they bankrupted themselves very early on trying to build their section of the Panopticon.
Oh.
That's why you don't find a lot of Scandalous Time Lords from the Scandalous chapter. Obviously, the Doctor and Romana are primarily from the Pridonian chapter, the Doctor being from the House of Longbarrow, and Romana being from the House of Heartshaven. So yeah, these chapters are also known as colleges, and they were basically the closest example I can give is just think of the houses of Hogwarts.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, except it's for life, and more importantly, the houses actually have political power in Time Lord time. So being sorted into the proper house or other chapter could really determine your future and where you would be and what you will do with all 13 of your lives. So it's a pretty big decision. The Time Lords are primarily governed by a high council of Time Lords, which is primarily made up of a Lord or Lady President, a Lord or Lady Chancellor, a Castellan, and various cardinals. Obviously, the president pretty much runs the entire planet and decides all the big major important decisions. The Chancellor mainly is in charge of law and the judicial system. The Castellan primarily is in charge of the Chancellery Guard, which by extension he or she are in charge of security on Gallifrey. And Cardinal is basically just a nebulous umbrella term for every other Time Lord involved in politics that doesn't necessarily have a distinct function.
Right, like a House of Representatives over here, like a
Yeah,
congressman. They're congressmen.
Yeah, congressman, senator,
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Every single one of the 6 chapters I've mentioned has a chapter a chapter cardinal, as well as a chapter castellan, which are all, the chapter castellans are all subordinates of the main prime castellan. And anything else? Then so when a Time Lord eventually dies, their entire memories and life experiences is being stored in the Time Lord Matrix, which can only be accessed by the Lord or Lady President by using the Sash of Rassilon and the Staff of Rassilon, which also contains one of the 6 keys into the Matrix. When a Time Lord, first of all, they can choose whether they want to actually die naturally or leave Gallifrey at a very old age in their final regeneration. So far, it's very, very rare that happened. There's only one occasion that I know where that happened, and that was Professor Chronotis from the infamous unproduced episode Shada. When they die, I said that already, but after that, their body must be destroyed. So sometime when they die, they either send out a burst of regeneration energy that destroys anything in the vicinity, including them. They can choose to be turned into a time stream, which is what we see in the Doctor's tomb in the name of the Doctor. But they have to will it into existence in order for that to happen. But if either one of those things aren't really possible at the time, their body needs to be burned, which is what the Doctor did to the Master's body in Last of the Time Lords, and what Riversong and company kind of did to sort of the Doctor's body in Astronaut. Yeah, I think that's about it. Do you have anything else you want to add to the Time Lords?
I just wanted to add about when I finished watching the Three Doctors, and I really loved Omega. I loved the helmet. I loved how he willed himself into existence. Not only did he will all the people on his planet, that he willed the planet, that he's at the end of the black hole because he willed it. He brings people over because he willed it. That he himself is just pure will. I really enjoyed that arc, the Three Doctors arc, and I'm here to say those classic Doctor Who bad guys, especially, could eat a meal out of those scripts, and they were allowed to do whatever they wanted to. And Omega, or I keep wanting to pronounce it like the kind of North American way. But it's Omega, I think, right? Omega, is that how they say it in the show? It's not Omega. I know that's a little more North American than how they say it on the show, but just in that reveal or whatever, when they pull his helmet up, that was so good. And finding out that he was like, yes, and then might be responsible for the Big Bang, and how he's the star builder, is that what he was called or something like that?
Stellar Engineer.
Right. Yes, stellar engineer. So yeah, so he builds universes and so on. I thought that was really cool. I really liked that. He was one of my my favorite bad guys of the episodes I watched.
Yeah, just a title like Stellar Engineer, and that's like a badass job to have, right? That's a badass title to have. Since you asked, I will correct you. You are making a very common mistake that a lot of Doctor Who fans say, where they call him Omega. His name is actually Omega.
Right,
Omega.
that's it.
Omega.
I forgot where the stress on. I thought it was me for saying Omega, but yeah, Omega. Right.
Yeah, he's not. Well, I mean, he is technically named after the letter Omega, but I mean, it's kind of a tangent. But do you really want to know the origin of his name?
Sure.
So in the Time Lord Academy, they're being rated with tests, obviously, and quizzes, as any academy would. And even in those early days, before the rise of Rassilon and the rise of Time Lord Society, but the difference is their grade system is a little bit different to the American grading system of A, B, C, D, F. It's mostly used. They're mostly using Greco-Roman. So yeah, alpha, beta, omega, gamma. Sorry, alpha, beta, gamma, so on and so forth. And he actually presented his theory on stellar engineering, which eventually led to the creation of the Eye of Harmony. Presented it to his professor, but because he didn't have any practical uses for it, the professor just refused to give him a good grade for it. He gave him the lowest grade ever given to anyone in the Academy on Gallifrey, Omega. And it was used by his classmates as a sort of a mocking term. He was the first one to ever get that low of a grade. They kept calling him Omega, Omega, Omega. And it was actually Rassilon who convinced him, you know what? Run with it. Just take it in stride, use it as a badge of honor. And he just called himself Omega, or rather Omega. That's why the emphasis is on O as opposed to Omega.
Man, right.
Yeah. And so it basically started out as a nickname, but eventually became his official name. or rather, the name that he predominantly uses. Now, since we just talked about the Time Lords, what do you say we talk about their number one enemies? Can you guess who they are?
The Daleks.
Incorrection. The vampire.
Oh, these guys. I thought these guys were cool too.
Yeah, or rather, the Great Vampires. That is the, as you can see up there, that is their the official name of the species. Also, they're also known as Yisgaroth, which is also their place of origin. That was actually one of the most complicated wiki articles that I had to read. I actually had to read a bunch of ones to actually compile a proper list of things to say about these guys. But yeah, their place of origin is in another universe, but for the sake of simplicity, let's just call it Iskaroth. Biological type. So biological type, parasitic mutations, notable members, Zargo, and you just watched the episode. It's been a while for me, but these three others I can't quite remember their names. But yeah, going back to this thing, Zargo, Dracula, Lord Tepish, which is depicted in this funny illustration, Nimrod, and Cassandra Schofield. Now, as I previously mentioned, there are beings from another reality that accidentally were led into the main universe by the Time Lords during some experimentation from Rassilon. They fought the Time Lords for supremacy. It's often believed that they originated from Time Lord fear and nightmares. They had well, we'll get to that later. But like I said, during the Dark Times, they came in. They basically sort of became the fundamental origin for vampire mythology on billions of other worlds. Basically, any inhabited or civilized planet they visited and infected the population, which eventually led to the creation of vampiric myths on 1,000 different worlds. They have really strong hypnotic powers. They can hypnotize entire planets single-handedly. They are potentially, now this is where it actually gets a little contradictory, because history is written by the victors, as we know all too well. And well, since Rassilon kind of won the war, he saw fit to write that particular section of universal history as in the form that actually makes him look the best. So they potentially were actually peaceful, mostly sucking on the blood of domesticated animals, which they bred specifically for feeding purposes, until Rassilon attacked them and tried to drive them away from the main universe, which is the main reason that they became more violent and actually forced them to become more dependent on the blood of much more sentient living creatures, which is why they, again, where the idea of blood sucking other people and replacing their blood with their own. They can, in their parasitic form, they can also infect others simply by touch, turning them into vampires as well. And they can only ever be killed with a steel bolt through the heart, not a wooden stake, a steel bolt. First of all, I have no idea how that is even possible. A steel bolt, not a steel ball, not a steel spear, a bolt of steel. So try to imagine that. Yeah, so let me hear you talk about what you think about these vampires, and then I'll get to actually talking about some other vampires that you might not be familiar with.
Okay. Well, yes, with the 3 or whatever in the middle-aged episode, there was a State of Decay. Was that the episode that I saw?
Yeah, State of Decay.
So, yes.
I'm very stupid. I forgot to mention. I actually do have their first appearance on title card. I forgot to mention that.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah. Again, 3 actors absolutely eating up a meal of the dialogue they were given, and I loved it. They were kind of corny, cheesy, and I was all for it. Now, the end comes and they're talking about the head vampire is going to rise and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And this thing was huge. So I don't understand how vampires went from being gigantic, huge monsters just to people size and stuff like that. I guess maybe that's more from the
Parasitic
parasites,
predominantly.
right? But yeah,
It's often, I forgot to write this down, but it's often believed that all other vampires are basically extensions of the great vampire,
okay.
or other.
Yeah, and it goes back into the timey-wimey stuff where the gigantic vampire is killed at the end of State of Decay. Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
Spoiler alert
But
for the episode.
so yeah, wipes out these guys. But vampires still remain. So I have no idea how they still remain. I'm sure it's mentioned somewhere, but it just means I have to go find the episodes where there's more vampires because yeah, it was a lot of fun. This was a really fun set of episodes. State of Decay. Yeah, it wasn't like it was it wasn't like a tour de force, but those three actors, the vampires were definitely the highlight of the show for me because because they were absolutely making a meal and they were as dramatic. It looked like Hammer style acting there for a while. It was great. I didn't understand the makeup, but yes, terrific.
Personally, I didn't really understand the makeup either, but
I
they look vampiric. I guess that's the intention there.
guess you're right.
Yeah. So to answer your question, like I said, the Great Vampire was the originator. All other vampires sort of came from him, and sort of merely minor extensions of his power. Uh, one of which happens to be Lord Tepesh, which is seen right here. If he
Yeah.
looked like the Sixth Doctor, that's predominantly because during the 40th year anniversary special Zagreus, uh, the Sixth Doctor, or other incarnations of the Doctor and companions were used as examples to personify different characters from different time zones, and in this particular case, Time Lord mythology. And the Sixth Doctor was used to represent Lord Tepesh, who was originally a cardinal of the Arcalian chapter during the very, very early days of Time Lord Society. Still after Rassilon defeated the Pythians to control of Gallifrey, but still a little bit before um, the development of regeneration energy was inserted into every single Time Lord. And as he was secretly a great vampire who uh, was fed up with Rassilon's sort of superiority complex and his belief that only creatures created in his image can survive. So he decided to break into his foundry, where he found weapons to take down his own kind. He also discovered that at that particular time, Rassilon was also working on a plan to expel these creatures from what's called a divergent universe and send them to a different universe. And in the process, sort of establish the idea that every civilized society on every civilized planet in the known universe would be created in Time Lord image, which is viewed as the image of perfection. That's why so many other species in Doctor Who look either human-like or humanoid because they took those ideas from Time Lords. The other major vampire I want to bring up is the character called the Nimrod, which is predominantly a human. His real human name is William Aberton. He experimented with with a vampire virus on human subjects during World War One. So eventually, the vampires that he ended up creating broke out of his containment field and began to attack him.
He had it coming.
They brought him to the brink of death, which is where he eventually used the vampire virus on himself, turning himself into an actual immortal vampire, living for hundreds of years. And in the early 2000s, he actually served in a secret military organization called the Forge, which is very similar to like Torchwood and Unit. So they deal
Right.
with it's a very militaristic organization where they deal with extraterrestrials. And in 2004, I believe he assassinated the head honcho of that organization, and took control over that entire organization and ran it, potentially ran it to the ground. That's my opinion. And he also infected a young girl by the name of Cassandra Schofield, who was the mother of a Seventh Doctor companion, Thomas Hector Schofield, also known as Hex. And he promised, the Sixth Doctor, I should say, promised her to get that he can actually find a cure for vampirism, and he left her somewhere, I believe, in Scandinavia. I think it's some part of Scandinavia. It's very much the ending of the first Blade movie. Like I'm not even kidding. It's very much the ending where Blade just finds a random vampire out in the middle of nowhere. That is where the Sixth Doctor finds Cassandra several years after he left her behind, as he tried to find a cure. And by the time he came back, he discovered that she no longer wants to be cured of vampirism. And to make matters worse, she was actually working for Nimrod at the Forge, which led into a much bigger storyline about Nimrod taking control of the Doctor and cloning him to help with some vampire-related projects in the Forge. It's a very interesting set of stories on Big Finish. Highly recommend checking it out. Anything to add on the Great Vampires?
No, I was hoping that these guys would have survived, so I'd get those three in other adventures or whatever. But I'm here to see the further adventures of the vampires as I go along my rewatch that I'll be starting up soon.
Well, don't get your hopes up, because there really aren't any vampires at all after that episode. They were mostly expanded upon in Big Finish and comics and stuff like that. So,
all right.
Really sorry to burst your bubble there.
Well, they would have had a hard act to follow. A hard act to follow.
Well, yeah, and there's tons of people making vampire stories. The key is just trying to get it right. So I guess no one really thought they could. Although versions of vampiric-like creatures have appeared in Doctor Who, predominantly the Hemovores in The Curse of Fenric, and a Plasmavore from Smith and Jones, which was Martha Jones' debut episode. Yeah, that woman with the straw, she's a vampire.
Yes.
Ish.
Ish. It's going to be a word today. Ish.
Yeah. Next, let's move on to one of my personal favorites.
Okay.
The Sontarans. As you can see here, species Sontarans. Homeworld Sontar. Biological type humanoids. Notable members Jingo Lynx, Commander Spire, General Stahl, Commander Cog, and Commander Strax.
Mm-hmm.
My personal favorite, Sontar. So they were originally created by a humanoid race, or rather a human-like race that very much resembled humans, called the Kavich, who were originally the original members of Sontar. They were created by means of cloning to fight a race called the Rutans, who have attacked the home planet of Sontar very early on. And this is the thing, the Sontarans are very serious creatures that are also somehow looped in with comedy. So these people, the Kavich, they're the original natives of Sontar, and they actually consider themselves to be the original Sontarans. They get attacked by these jellyfish amoeboid creatures called the Rutans.
Right.
And because they're so much weaker than them, the only way that they can retaliate is by creating a clone army. Sounds familiar a little bit, I know. But the only way they can fight back is by creating a clone army of Sontaran clones. They call them the Sontaran clones. They don't actually call them Sontarans. But because the clones that they created were so perfect for war, they actually drove the Kavich out of their home planet of Sontar and assumed command of the entire planet. And now they think themselves as the supreme rulers of Sontar, and they no longer want to find an end to that war. So they were created to fight the war, but they have no, they don't show any signs of wanting to end the war. They just want to keep on fighting, to keep on continue with the war. They don't even care about peace anymore.
Right.
So yes, Sontarans reproduce through by means of cloning. A million clones can be created from hatcheries every 4 minutes on the home moon of on the moon of Sontar, and due to the low gravitational pull of that moon, they are much stronger and more durable on other planets with a weaker gravitational pull, like Earth and Gallifrey, which is why they are such efficient soldiers all throughout the galaxy. They have gray brownish skin with 3 fingers or 3 digits, 2 fingers and a thumb, and for the most part they have green blood. Although sometimes they have red blood in certain depictions, and sometimes they also have facial hair in the form of beards that tend to grow white as they get older, which is very rare for Sontarans because to live to an older age almost sometimes seems like a dishonor for Sontarans, because Sontarans is to die in battle, or rather to fight in battle, and if possible, not die in honor. Sontarans reaching an old age doesn't really happen a lot, even though they have a lifespan of about 80 years. Blah 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 blah. If they get too badly wounded, they can go into an anabolic coma, which sometimes they die from it, but on fairly rare occasions they can also wake up from the dead and continue the fighting. They are predominantly fed through a provic vent at the back of their necks, which is their and most noticeable weakness. A single hit to that provic vent can actually knock out a Sontaran for hours. A sharp object penetrating that provic vent can kill them, which is why they always face their opponents in battle with their face. They can never turn their backs on an opponent. They only need 7.5 minutes of sleep every 27 Earth hours, and some Sontarans are very rarely born with genetic defects, which the Sontarans that are born with these types of defects are mainly relegated to doing menial labor, cleaning and maintenance, that sort of stuff, which, again, considered a huge dishonor for Sontaran to be able to do. So if we're going to go on the if we're going to compare it to Star Wars, because they also have a clone army there, I know you haven't watched the Clone Wars, but just try to compare it to Clone 99. If anyone watching this has actually watched the Clone Wars series. And some defects also include having 5 fingers on each hand. And in that case, Sontarans with 5 fingers are mostly assigned to be scientists and experimentalist. Not even sure that's a word, but they are known to be very paranoid. Which I don't know if you noticed it, but Commander Steyer actually does have 5 fingers.
No, I didn't notice that.
Blah blah blah. Oh, and if a Sontaran disagrees with a direct command from a superior officer, they can duel to the death to find out who the superior Sontaran is, and the winner, or rather the victor, assumes command over the unit. So, what have you say of the Sontarans? One of my favorite races in World Cup.
Okay, so this the rewatch these old episodes and stuff. This is the first race that I recognized from the new Doctor Who. So with the new version, I didn't think they were all that evil. The Sontarans. I knew that they were clones and they had this huge army and stuff, but they never really felt evil. These ones here felt much more evil. But the first watching the first one with Link there when they're in the Middle Ages, what I legitimately laughed when that helmet came off, and just to see how much makeup and prosthetics, how far it's gone from today to, to the 70s. Seeing his eyes in behind there, you're just seeing how it's like a big thing with a head, and oh my goodness, yeah, looks like
Compared,
he looks like he has
compared
a bit of a turtle head.
to this,
Yeah, yeah. See that looks almost natural. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I thought it was pretty funny. I think what a strange weakness to have. Just hit the blowhole in the back and he's done. It's not like these guys can move around very much. I guess that's why you have 100 million of these guys, because all you have to do is get behind them and you wipe them all out.
yeah, but they're very strategic. They always know to land and to plan their assault so that they always face their enemies from the front. They can storm a beach, but they never actually go behind enemy lines because they can't really risk facing someone, showing someone their back. It's almost like the reverse of the Weeping Angels, where they can't afford to look at anybody.
Right.
They have to look at their enemy dead in the eyes. They also consider removing their helmets as a great honor because, by all accounts, that technically makes them weaker and more vulnerable to the head. They call it facing their enemy with exposed skin, and they also have a battle cry, Sontar Ha, Sontar Ha, Sontar Ha. And they also have a marching anthem known as the Sontaran anthem, which lyrics literally go Sontar, Sontar, we fight for Sontar. The glory of Sontar is what we need. Sontar, Sontar, we die for Sontar. The deaths of our enemies is why we live. Lovely, very, very lovely people. Should we move on to the next one?
Oh yeah, they're adorable.
The
Like
next one, another one of my favorites, the Ice Warriors.
Okay.
Originally, they're called Martians, but because of their association with the cold, they are known throughout the galaxy as Ice Warriors. Home planet, or rather home world, I should say, Mars. Biological type, reptilian cyborg humanoids. Honestly, I would be fine with just such reptilian humanoids, but then I guess they're also sort of cyborg in nature. Notable members: Islir, seen in the picture right here, Harma, Sard, Skaldak, and Iraxa. Yeah, they're like I said, they're reptilian cyborg soldiers from the planet Mars. They were created by a race called the the Gun the Gandorans. They originally had pyramids on planet Mars before Earth society. We'll get to that in just a bit. Yeah, they have very human-like skeletons. However, they have flatter heads or flatter skulls, I should say, with much wider eye sockets. The females of the species are actually created much more lengthier and slightlier than the males, and they have spiny dorsal crests on their body, which are which the males of the species actually consider very sexually attractive. In fact, the Doctor Who wiki actually compares these the spiny dorsal crests to breasts. They are cold-blooded, like
nice spiny dorsal things.
yeah, love those spines. They're
Oh my
mostly
God.
cold-blooded like most other reptiles. They can live for about 300 years. And because of gravity reasons, they are very slow-moving in planets of weaker atmosphere, like Earth, and also because of the different atmosphere, they wheeze and hiss and have trouble breathing. And that is why in the earlier episodes we hear them all the time. They worship a race called the Osirans. Again, we'll get to that. And they also worship an entity known as Tubor, who is believed to be the first ice warrior and the reason why the ice warriors became ice warriors, essentially. And their children are sent, they predominantly live beneath the surface of Mars. That's where they built their cities. And as a sort of rite of passage, their children are sent to the surface as a test of endurance. And if they survive, they're presented with another test where they have to pull the sword of Tubor from a brazier, a flaming brazier. And again, if they survive that, or if they succeed, they officially become classified as adults. That's lots of interesting facts about the Ice Warriors. There's still probably more I could have said, but for time-related reasons, I'm decided to shorten it down. We still have 2 more species to go over.
Okay. So the Ice Warriors. I have a thing. I do not like people whispering. There's something about it. It's kind of like it just kind of makes your skin crawl, like nails on a chalkboard for some people.
I know what you're saying. I understand.
So the way they were talking, it was honestly creeping me out. I could the first one, from what I saw from the first episode where I actually see them and stuff moving around. I was not a fan of these guys. Plus, this is like the Ice Warriors are, I believe, a reason why people will think back to how cheesy the old Doctor Who was, because of how slow, and they were very robotic moving, including like the claw kind of hands, right? And people would just kind of run up to them and try and hit them, and then they would just kind of move like this, and the other person would go flying and stuff like that. So I think they were fine for the time. And as you see, it progresses, and the Ice Warriors become, much more in line with like today's kind of thought of what these aliens should look like. But those first episodes, just the hissing's fine. It's just when the whispering and stuff like that, it honestly kind of made my skin crawl just listening to them talk.
Hey, I mean, they're reptiles, so making your skin crawl is kind of par for the course.
There you go.
Yeah, this is a part where I love that Doctor Who continuously does. Something you don't really see in a lot of other sci-fi related franchises is they use the limitations of the budget, particularly with the creature design, to their advantage and actually make it a part of the lore. So, consider the Ice Warrior suit, the costume itself, very hard to move around in. That's why they keep moving like this.
Yeah.
Like as I read off the notes here, they made it a part of the lore that because of Earth's stronger gravity, they're very slow moving, and the hissing noises because of the atmosphere.
As soon as you started talking about that, it's like, I get it. It's like, okay, these things are lumbering. Let's just make it. This is the reason why, is because of the dense atmosphere in Earth. So yeah, that was smart. That was smart to think.
And again, that's what Doctor Who does all the time. Like they use the limitations of the cheaply designed costumes and make it say that's a part of the species. Like I don't know if you got to that episode. It's a very early Hartnell era episode. But it's like there's a race where like the mask, you couldn't see the eyes of the actor. Okay. So it's basically it looks like they have no eyes. So they just made it a part of the lore that they just don't have eyelids. They see all the time. They can't close their eyes.
Smart.
And it's not like it's a big thing. It's like a throwaway line in one of the episodes, which is just great. So I didn't
Plug the
mention.
hole, so. Go
I
ahead.
did mention that the Ice Warriors worship the Osirans. Now let's talk about the Osirans. The original species of the Osirans, homeworld known as the Throne World, biological type humanoid with animal-like attributes. Notable members: Sutek,
Mm-hmm.
Osiris, Sekhmet, or rather Sekhmet, I should say, Anubis, and Horus. So basically, this is pretty self-explanatory. They're the inspiration for Egyptian gods, essentially. They originally came from the coat of Osiris, which is their original sort of homeworld, also known as the Throne World. And basically, they are powerful. The Fifth Doctor describes them as powerful super beings and like potential gods of the universe that sort of engineered uh, many civilizations, and that's why a lot of civilizations, including Earth, have the concept of worship them as gods and have a sort of belief system. When Sutek led the court of Osirans, sorry, this Sutek led the court of Osirans. They were considered one of the most powerful beings in the universe, to the point where all six ruling houses of the Time Lord Society feared them greatly. And eventually, Sutek went rogue, and they tried to turn the universe into dust for some reason, which actually destroyed the throne world, also known as the Pharaohs Cyrus, to the point where the Osirians begrudgingly had to, or rather, were forced to lock him up on a pyramid inside a pyramid on the planet Mars, and sort of exile him for the rest of eternity. And by the time he eventually woke up and decided to reclaim his dominance in the universe, the Osirians have all but died out, except for Sekhmet, which a little bit of a tangent story, but basically she went back to planet Earth, where she was worshipped as a goddess, because obviously Sekhmet, one of the original Egyptian gods. She tried to force the humans to do their will, and the humans eventually rebelled with the help of another Osiran known as Ra. No reason to explain who he's based on, but yeah. So Ra gave the humans of Egypt the knowledge of how to get rid of Sekhmet. They locked her up in a block of salt, and they sent her through the stars, eventually crash landing on the planet Paladon, which is where she made her new home. What are we? So yeah, they can live for thousands of years without the need of food, but for some reason they still need air and oxygen to survive. They prefer their food, which their preferred form of sustenance is Osiran curry, which is best served at a temperature of absolute zero.
Oh, I thought you were going to say with non-bread.
Yeah, yeah. They can survive without food, and they like to eat their favorite food at literally the coldest temperature in the universe.
All right.
I found that interesting, and they lived on at least 600 worlds in some. And because they have no, because they're basically immortals, were immortals, they have no real concept of death or children, which is why they allowed themselves to marry their own siblings, which does actually fall in line with real Egyptian mythology. So, Mr. Snark, I ask you, you hate Moon Knight. Why are the Osirans better?
It was just a more fun episode. It wasn't jumping around or anything. It followed a linear path. I really enjoyed the pyramids of Mars. Okay, so their homeworld is called the homeworld. It isn't Mars.
The throne,
The throne world. Yes.
Mars is one of the planets they inhabited and built pyramids to be worshipped, which is why they worshipped the original Martians, and that is where they locked up Sutek after he went rogue.
Right. And okay, yeah. No, I was just wondering because I think the episode it was the pyramids of Mars. I think is the name of that episode, right? Something like that. Anyways, I really like their ability to take over dead flesh or whatever and like reanimate dead bodies to do their bidding. I like again the clumsy robot mummies. I thought were very fun. And Sutek, yeah, those guys, they were fun. The doctor makes a fine mummy if I remember right. And let's see. Oh, Sutek, yes. When the doctor finally meets up and he starts giving him all his names, including Satan and stuff like this, is all the names he's known by. So I thought that was a really cool bit. I always enjoy when they throw a little bit of this kind of stuff in Doctor Who. They do it later in all iterations of the Doctor, like when they do mythology with like say Robin Hood and stuff like that. Later on with Capaldi and stuff. It was one of the more favorite arcs that I watched from this time for sure. Now and then just showing what the other ones are like. It's like, oh, I'll probably have to read all the comics to get more from the Sirens because they probably don't show up as often in the show again. So you're giving me all these one-off guys that I really like, and then I have to dig through. I guess I have to go dig through the extended media to see further adventures of these guys. But yeah, I like it. So was it Horus that was Horus a bad guy? Is Horus a bad guy? Or is he one of the good ones? I thought that Horus was the one who imprisoned Sutek.
No, he was sort of this is Horus. It was sort of a collective decision by the remaining Sirens.
Right, okay.
Prison Sutek. According to this, Anubis called himself the son of Sutek. And Sekhmet is, as I mentioned in the story involving Paladon, she's predominantly a baddie, potentially even crazier than Sutek. And it's actually funny that you mentioned Satan. You know the episode The Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit, where we see the 10th Doctor battling the Beast, the origin of Satan. The Beast, voiced by the same actor who voiced Sutek.
Tying it all up.
Yep.
That's just attention to detail right there.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything else we need to mention about the Sirens, other than the fact that they do Egyptian mythology better than the Moon Knight show. And,
I can do Egyptian mythology better than the Moon Knight show. I better not say that out loud. I don't want to go missing. Guys.
Well,
it's happened before.
Well,
not to me.
Strictly speaking, well, actually, no. I can't use that excuse anymore because we actually have Disney Plus around here now. So
wait.
I can't make that excuse anymore. So I was gonna say Disney can't touch me because I don't know. I've never seen Moon Knight. I don't have Disney Plus, but we have Disney Plus here now. So
their fingers grow long.
Now, the species that actually inspired this episode today, the ones I mentioned that I originally did not like because they were just one single one-off episode, until Big Finish came along and did what they do best, just expanded the lore.
Okay.
The Draconians.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you noticed, but I actually added the 3 S's on the thing because that's how they
yeah.
Never really understood that. I mean, it didn't. I didn't really notice it when I watched that episode for the first 2 times. I really started to notice it when I started reading comics. It was like, why do they have 3 S's? That's not how they speak. Then I looked up some clips from the episode. And, oh yeah, can't believe I never noticed that. And they actually do.
Do you know what I noticed just as much as that? How much they roll their R's. Like these guys do like the classically trained actor thing where they roll their R's for effect. how they are reptilian. Right. Yes. I love it. That's what I want to see in a bad guy. Over the top kookiness.
You
And they
don't
weren't
get
even bad guys. They were good guys.
you don't get more over the top and kooky than the Draconians.
Yeah.
Homeworld Draconia, biological type, humanoid reptilians. Notable
Another one.
members.
Mm-hmm.
Notable members: the Red Emperor, the White Emperor, Salander, Togoya Azuran, and yeah, I'm pretty sure that's about it. First appearance: Frontier in Space. One of the few episodes, I believe, is actually gets name dropped during the episode itself.
Oh.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, they are reptilian. They hatch from eggs, like most reptilians do. They have 2 stomachs and 3 hearts. I don't know why.
Lucky.
I don't know why the Dr. Kuwiki was so keen to point that out, but yeah, they are very much an imperial monarchy, monarch society with 1 emperor ruling at any given time. And any of the former emperors are nicknamed the Deathless Emperors or the Eternal Emperors. I can't remember. It goes into a much bigger point that I'll be making later. But yeah, respect must be given to the emperor in his court before you're even allowed to speak to him. You must first bow down and kiss the emperor's claws and say, "My life at your command."
Mm-hmm.
Members of lower class or women cannot speak to the emperor at all, not even the emperor's wife. They also have this belief that the males are not allowed to cry or show any kind of emotion. Members of lower class to the emperor are not allowed to say their own opinions and are primarily expected to nod whenever asked. They're asked about what they think of. Now, yeah, so the males are basically mainly the males basically do everything. They're uh, uh, the emperor, they're the princes, they're involved in the military. The women are primarily relegated to either menial household tasks or any religion-based tasks. Most of the main prime priests are female. They also have this very interesting game called Zazu, which is basically like a draconian version of chess with different pieces made from different paper soldiers. They also have their own, classes like the soldier, the knight, the tower, that sort of thing. And they played a little bit different from Earth chess. And it's believed that the Third Doctor was able to actually beat the Red Emperor at chess. Now, here's where things actually. First of all, they live in paper houses. They're very. I mean, the inspiration from Chinese
Japanese. Yeah.
empires is, it's not very subtle at all. But
No.
when an emperor dies, the people just built a massive paper palace for him, which is where they put his body and sort of keep him in a kind of living dead status inside his tomb, where they also keep the lowest of the low, the highest of the high, his regional priest, and his eventual successor, which is either the prince or someone he appoints, and the main advisor is a religious leader, which quite oftentimes happens to be his wife. And basically, they take the entire paper palace and shoot it up into space, where it's floating in the orbit of Draconia, the planet, where all of the great emperors of the past are basically floating around the orbit of their planet for all eternity in a sort of living death status, and they just play chess with each other, or they play Sazu with each other. And right here, I don't know if you can tell, but right here on the cover of this Big Finish episode, you can actually kind of see, first of all, a female Draconian, but right underneath her, you can see some of the
Oh, I see. Yeah.
floating in space. Each emperor was also assigned a different color. There's the red emperor, the white emperor, the green emperor, and so on and so forth. And each individual emperor of a specific color is also given his own colored Sasu pieces, the paper chess people. So, yeah. Didn't I mention that the lore that Big Finish added to them is much more interesting than the episode that they appeared in?
Yeah. Oh yeah, they flesh it out a lot more, don't they? You get little bits from that from Frontier in Space for sure. You get the kind of class system where the Emperor, there's the Prince, and the one thing I thought they did in that episode that was smart was play up that these guys are supposed to be the bad guys. It seems like that, and then give it the old switcheroo, where it really was the Earthlings that were being the jerks in this one. And that,
No, it was the Master. It was all orchestrated by the Master.
Yeah.
In an alliance with the Daleks.
Right. I'm just saying that, like for the first two episodes or whatever, you could see like, oh, the Draconians are going to attack Earth, and when are we going to attack them back, and all this stuff, and then it figures out that, well, we wouldn't have done that if if your ship didn't already attack us, and oh, okay, we get it, but yeah, it was all masterminded by the Master. So. Go ahead.
That episode actually features. I'm not a big fan of the episode itself, but it actually features one of my favorite funny moments of Doctor Who ever, which is where after the Doctor finally breaks through the lock, where him and Joe were imprisoned on the ship,
right.
He finally opens the door and he finds that the guards are back. Sort of came back to take him to face justice for what they've done. He was like, "Oh, well, that's very embarrassing. Good afternoon." Yeah, I just love the Third Doctor's comedy. And, what else was the last? Oh yeah. So clearly, again, not necessarily shown in this episode, but during that time in the 26th century, the Draconian Empire actually built a big, massive empire to rival the Earth Empire. And even though they had their conflicts in that episode, they mostly stayed neutral with each other, to the point where the Draconians actually refused to help the humans with their growing battle with the Dalek Empire at the time. They were like, okay, we know we had our differences, but like that's their thing. We don't touch the humans. Let the humans and the Daleks destroy each other. We're just here doing our own thing, trying to recover from the Space Plague, which was actually very prominent during that time. The Space Plague, which was spreading throughout the galaxy, which was later also revealed to be the Daleks' sort of modus operandi when it comes to invading other planets. So, yeah, they do have a sort of religious system, but hold on, let me just see if I can find it. Tell me what else you like about these guys as I look for something.
What I liked about them, I liked, well, again, the over-the-top acting. And that's going to be like the thread line here with all these great old aliens, is that the people who were hired to do this job took it extremely seriously. And with the over pronunciation and the Shakespearean hand movements and stuff like that, the Draconians were a very fun alien race to watch being performed. I would like, now that you keep showing again extended media and stuff like that, it's like, oh, I'm not going to get any more, or I'm not going to get many more Draconians or whatever. At least not as much in this first series, anyway.
In the TV verse, they're mentioned a lot, but
yeah,
they're never really seen much other than that. And to the point where I couldn't even find the thing I was looking for. They're actually one of the few, one of many species, but one of the few we actually get to learn about in Doctor Who universe that actually have their own zodiac, and it's a really badass looking one. I just couldn't find the picture of it, which is a shame because it's a really, really good looking zodiac. But yeah.
Again,
But
borrowing from Far Eastern cultures and stuff like that too. Then, sort of like how there's the Chinese zodiac, and
the
there's
Chinese,
living in, and Shintos and stuff like that. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that.
like I said, it's a really cool. It's very grayish, almost stone tablet with like stars and waves. It's
Is this through comic books that you see this stuff, or like where have you seen?
it's in an episode of the Sarah Jane Adventures.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen that, but it's very briefly shown on screen, but it's worth the watch just to see that one.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna try and, like I said, when I go through this, I'm gonna try and get through it in when in canon stuff like that. So I know the Sarah Jane Adventures. Is that's during the 10th Doctor's time? Is that right?
The series originally created by Russell T Davies is sort of a spin-off, mainly focusing on Elizabeth Sladen's further adventures as Sarah Jane Smith with her adopted son Luke and her good friends and family. Unfortunately, it had to end when Elizabeth Sladen passed away in 2011, I think. But that is a story for another time. I believe that brings an end to this episode. I think we covered a lot today. A lot of interesting facts about some aliens that may or may not have more interesting facts about them outside the TV world of Doctor Who.
You have to do some digging. You have to do some digging to find out more on these guys for sure.
Yeah, this was definitely a fun trip down the rabbit hole that is the Doctor Who week. So, and I can't wait to do this to do the same thing next week with another guest, which we will actually be covering the modern era of Doctor Who, which thankfully actually has more on screen than off screen. Can't wait for that. So, Mr. Snark, where can the people find you?
You can find me here on the Northern Entertainment Group YouTube channel. Every Tuesday on, if you've seen this, that's the television show. We talk about shows that we're watching, shows that we're excited for. Once in a while, we'll do a deeper dive into programs. We tend to do more book report style stories on television shows, but we'll go week to week or episode to episode with some of the main, IP stuff that's coming out, i.e. The Boys, i.e. Moon Knight. We did. Oh boy. We'll also be doing a big episode for Jodie's or the 13th Doctor final episode as it comes out here in the semi-near future. I don't think it's quite as far off as it felt like a few months ago after the Sea Devils episode. But yeah.
October 16th.
I'm sorry, when?
October 16th.
Yeah.
Is the final episode.
Guys, that's 2.5 months. Oh boy.
Yep.
Oh boy. All right. Very excited for the new Doctor as well. So yeah, you can find me there every Tuesday, 7:00 Central Time. I think that's about 3:00 in the morning for you, 50. But you know what? It's YouTube. You can watch it whenever you like.
That's the fun of it.
I like it. Thanks for having me on. And you could also watch me help tier list the Doctor Who theme music on this very show, but last week.
Yeah. And just in case the powers that be are watching, the people that don't like Moonlight can't stop singing the praises of Miss Marvel. So it balances out. They love Miss Marvel on Have You Seen This?
Loved it.
Loved it. That's it for that. And that's for me. You can find me every Monday on this show, The Greatest Show in the Galaxy. You can find me on my own YouTube channel, Frequency to Geek. And you can also find me on this channel on Saturdays with Soda and Ben, my two good friends. And speaking of Ben, I have also competed with him on the John Roca Outlaw Nation Patreon. So go ahead, if you're a member of the John Roca Patreon Discord server, go ahead and check out that match. Also, Soda and Ben have their own show on this channel called Rewind the Tape. Soda also does another show on this channel called The Squared Slice. He also does another show on the week called The Dropkicks, but I think they changed the name of it on the LGR network.
The blokes of wrestling. The blokes of wrestling.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and, Ben also has his own channel called The Multiverse of Geekdom. We know does all kinds of fun, interesting shows there. You can also find our good friend of the channel, former member of the channel, as a matter of fact, Taco, on his channel, Something to Talk About, as well as another former member of the channel and good friend of the show, Jess the Kiwi, on her channel Kiwi Jess. So yeah, that's it for plugs.
What a busy bunch.
Yeah, we all like to keep busy here on the YouTubes. So Stark, once again, I thank you, and can't wait to have you on the show some other time. See you some other time, and just to help finish us off.
Oh boy.